Today, we begin a new series based on the work of James O.D., and it is entitled The Soul Awakening Practice. And so this morning, I want to lay the groundwork as to why his work at this time, and there's many other practices, but he combines mystical teachings, what is wanting to evolve now as we are in this great paradigm shift. So I invite you to be present as I lay the groundwork for where we are going based on what we have been experiencing. So if you sense some uncomfortability arising in what I say, I invite you to breathe into that and just be present to it. So my friends, it's no surprise to you that over the last 18 plus months that we have experienced such great chaos, conflict, upheaval, loss, unprecedented loss, and much pain and suffering. And as we breathe into that knowing, we also have been aware that despite the pain and suffering that has been in our experience, that although countless individuals within our community and all around the world have used this experience of great pain and suffering and of upheaval to be the call to go within, to deepen their spiritual practices and to be transformed from the inside out. However, there is still countless, and I mean countless individuals within our community and around the world who are still sharing with me or reporting that they are still experiencing intense or significant feelings of anxiety, of depression, of loneliness, of hurt, betrayal, hopelessness, and yes, anger and rage. Do we dare discuss anger and rage in spiritual communities? So let's look at anger and rage. Let's talk about it. In our world, in the world around us currently, we see or hear of wait staff, hostesses, teachers, flight attendants, nurses, and doctors being physically assaulted for asking individuals to adhere to COVID safety protocols. And the vaccinated population is becoming quite angry and annoyed with those who refuse the vaccine, believing that they are the sole cause of why we cannot shake this pandemic once and for all. And then the unvaccinated feel hurt and angry about their right to choose being infringed upon, and feeling sometimes hurt and angry about being left out of social events. And this experience of conflict is all around us. It is even experienced among family members and with our friends. We see citizens at war with the government, whether it is local, state, or federal. We see citizens, groups of citizens at war with other groups of citizens based on seeing things differently or being different based on the color of their skin or their religious affiliation, socioeconomic association, or political affiliation. And even a lot of people are becoming a little intolerant and some accepting of those who go by gender non-specific. And we also see that there is some warring going on or intolerance happening among citizens as the immigration maybe rises because they are based in fear that there's no room, they will steal our jobs. And all of that is based all in fear. My friends, whether you watch the news or not, or whether you have physically witnessed or participated or experienced in any of this conflict, know this, that the collective pain and suffering is palpable to all of us. And if you deny it, then you do not believe in the law of oneness that we speak of. But at this time, we are really being called to not just talk about it, intellectually study it, but to embody it on all levels of our being. And if we believe in the law of oneness, then even science shows us that we live in an interconnected web of life. And so what is in the one is in the whole, and what is in the whole is in the one. Mystics have spoken about that, and now science reminds us of that. And so how could we not experience the pain and suffering, whether it is ancient pain or newly found pain of our brothers, sisters, and siblings? And so I'd like us to just take a moment. Take a deep breath in and out. Notice what you are feeling as I share with you this morning. Notice how you might have experienced any of this over the last few years. And I ask you if you're willing to make that vow of commitment to be willing to go deeper, to feel whatever is wanting to be felt of your own pain and suffering, or the pain of your brother, sister, siblings, knowing that as one heals, we all heal. And as we put the light, the sunshine, the best disinfectant on what is wanting to be looked at so that we can be transformed, that we say yes to our healing. And despite all of this upheaval and conflict and chaos, modern day mystics, visionaries, and teachers are excited. They are excited because they wholeheartedly believe that we are living in the most extraordinary time in humanity's history. Let me say that again. We are living in the most extraordinary time in humanity's history. See, what is happening as we experience such a magnitude of change, of chaos, of conflict, is that we are in the midst of a major paradigm shift. And when one paradigm is slowly dying and the other is wanting to emerge, but before that emergence, we want to cling to the old and what's familiar. And as a result, in that absence of not knowing, being in that unknown territory, we experience that chaos and discord. We have a little bit of chemicalization that happens that I'll speak about later. And that discord and chaos and comfort is also, know this, the universal urge of wanting to establish order where there is not, where we have gone astray. And so that evolutionary discontent and uncomfortability within us is that calling for not for us to war with each other, but to go within and to flow with the evolutionary impulse to grow and evolve. And so Carolyn Myss says that, yes, we are living in a world undergoing rapid fire transformation, and the impact of the changes in motion are touching all of our lives. If there was ever a time to confront personal fear, it is now. And these rapid fire transformational experiences can be seen as we are shifting from religious dogma, the separation of the religious wars, and living as the master teacher talked about centuries ago, from the letter of the law and control, to what is really wanting to emerge is for all those walls, not just the walls, and here we are virtually, right? But the walls that divide us, even among religious teachings, to fall away. And the urge is to evolve into a more cosmic spirituality. And yes, we have been for centuries talking about separation, being fear-based, living in a duality, living in the dualistic mindset, and been professing the teaching of oneness, but we are being called to embody it at a level that we have not been willing to embody it before. Also, shifting beneath us, the fossil age is giving way to the solar age, and all those who work in the industry with coal and all of those other ways that we used to fuel ourselves are fearful, thinking, is there a place for me? And so we see that angst, that anger coming out in that chemicalization. And we are moving from earth matter civilization into an energy age. And for some of you, none of this is new, but the intensity of the call to make this shift is incredibly intense and will continue to be intense as long as we are willing to cooperate and to flow with this change within ourselves and in the world around us. Not only do we see us moving from being so consumed with matter and things being important, but moving into knowing that where the power is in energy, vibration, and frequency. But Carolyn Myss also talks that our very design is being changed and altered. And I'll talk about that next week when I share some of the teachings about soul awakening with Barbara Marx Hubbard. She states, Carolyn Myss states this: we are actively dismantling the denser part of our world and converting what we can to energy technology. A bio-spiritual ecological shift is also occurring within our very human design. And she also shares that the upheaval that we are experiencing is the result of the conscious skin of humanity's collective belief system becoming too suffocating for civilization. Suffocating. How often throughout these last years, it's becoming, right? Have we heard, I can't breathe, on many different levels and contexts. And what is suffocating us, Carolyn Myss professes, is our outdated understanding of the nature of God. As some of us want to cling to a deity that resides in the sky, instead of an understanding God as law and the nature of ourselves, right? Our divine nature, we've moved from the evolution of understanding, yes, we are divine. And somehow in some of that new thought teachings or new age teachings, somehow we believe that we must not give attention to our body and our humanity, because after all, we are spiritual beings. But if everything is of God, so is our humanity. And so we are being asked to embrace our humanity and our divinity in ways, not to eradicate or kill off our personality selves, which some people call the ego, but to go deep within our souls and to look at how, what is wanting to be healed and transformed, and not about getting rid of our ego, but allowing our divine nature to be in the driver's seats of our lives with our personality or ego selves that is needed to live in this world, but not of this world, which is part of the great divine design, to be in the not in the driver's seat, but to be in service to our divinity. And we are also needing to really fully understand how powerful we are. And I've spoken about this, that everything that we choose in consciousness has the power to create, and how we have misused as our society our power to get what we want, to control others. And the way we solve problems is also outdated and needing to be looked at. Albert Einstein has shared his wisdom with us, and he states that no problem can be solved from the level of consciousness that created it, which is the similar meaning that Jesus spoke of in Luke chapter 5, verses 37 to 39, when he stated, "No one puts new wine in old wineskins, for if he, she, they does, the new wine will burst the skins, and it will be spilled, and the skins will be destroyed. But the new wine must be put into fresh wineskins, and no one after drinking old wine desires new." So unless we do more than intellectually affirm and study these spiritual principles, unless we do the inner soul work that is necessary and embody these teachings in a way that is new for all of us in a deeper way, then we will still be landing at the level of trying to solve these things that are occurring around us, dealing with the shifts and change of this paradigm shift from the old paradigm. So even though we know intellectually these spiritual teachings and that no problem can be solved from the level of consciousness that created it, oh, do we try to cling to those old ways? And we can see it in how we are dealing with what's happening around us as we cling to the third dimensional problem solver within us, or the victim within us, which is insidious in so many ways. And so we can see this happening when we want to know who's to blame. How can I get my way? Who can I get to be on my side? And even we've become very sly, even in our psychology, that teaches us not to be a doormat. And we even have these tools where we can look at our personality type, so on and so on, and we get to try to understand the types of others, right? But we use it in the way, no, knowing that I am not a doormat is an inner knowing. And it is not about proving it to other people. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't speak spiritual truth, that we don't stand in our divinity, that we don't say no, or we don't profess what we are for. But who we are being speaks louder than the words that we speak. And if you see in consciousness this thought arise, right? I am a good spiritual person, so why is this happening to me? I have had that happen in my life, when really it cannot be understood from the impermanent world that we live in. And we try to solve what is happening by just our intellectual minds, by analyzing it, trying to come up with lists and plans, and believing because I'm such a good spiritual person, because I'm experiencing such chaos and personally that might be different or the same as other people, then something must be wrong. My friends, we must move from being third dimensional problem solvers to being fourth and fifth dimensional in the ways that we are being. See, when we ask these questions of our soul, this is what it sounds like. I wonder what this experience is trying to teach and unearth in me. What is wanting healing within myself? And as I asked that question, as I felt the anger and rage at the cable guy, I'll give an example. So a couple of weeks ago, there was a storm. If you've been with me for a couple of weeks, you know I've had some issues with the internet dropping out. And I was calling Cablevision, and then they would give me the spiel that we're fixing it. It was because of a storm. And it just continued for 3 weeks. And then finally, I'm like, look, this is my livelihood. I really need this to work. And I was, pretty calm. And so they're like, okay, so we're going to send someone out to look and see what's going on. Well, for 5 days after I scheduled that, I would get a call and they would say, you know what, we fixed it, but so we don't need to send anybody out. And then I would tell them, no, I'm still having interruption of service. So I think by the 5th or 6th time I got this call, and it was probably the day before that they were scheduled to come out. They're like, oh, we're checking in. And I'm like, yeah, there's been improvement. But, I'm still really recognizing that it's not working. It's not happening as often, but the internet is dropping out. So after me sharing all that, they go into, so we see on our end that everything has been fixed. So we're not going to send anybody out to look at your cable. And I felt like, I don't know where this anger and rage came from. Well, deep within me, and I'm like, my feet were crawling. I'm like, did you even hear anything I just said? Or are you just reading a script that you're supposed to read? Now, I'm not saying it's not okay to get angry, but as I looked at what was this about on a soul level, yeah, I can say, yeah, they're just not being in the right way. Oh, that Cablevision, they're not any good. Take a breath, Ange, right? Not being heard or seen went so much deeper than the cable people. And as I began to look at that, and to do that inner work from within, and then asking myself, who am I willing to be in this moment, is quite different in responding to a situation, knowing that despite appearances, that everything here is for my greatest good, even though it doesn't feel that way. And so we are asked to move from the intellectual mind into asking and knowing the anatomy of our souls. And that is a whole nother exploration that we can delve in after this series. So what I wanted to share is all of this uncomfortability that we are experiencing, Emily, Katie, coined years ago is called chemicalization. The conflict that takes place when a high spiritual realization contacts an old state of consciousness, or when an old paradigm is no longer working and is collapsing. And the chemicalization comes out with being disgruntled, angry, feeling things that maybe we haven't felt in a long time, so on and so on. And Reverend Paul Hasselbeck actually gave us a new model, and I've shared this with you. And he calls that we have a belief system. And if we are to evolve and grow, as long as we take that we are a soul wanting to express and evolve, that we will always experience dying to the old, this chemicalization. So we have a belief system that we feel good with, right? As a society, right? A way of being that has been for centuries old. And that is being challenged. And outside that realm, when we hear a new thought, like some of the stuff is not new for some of you, and for some of you it may be. And you're like, oh my gosh, that makes sense from a visionary, from a soul level perspective. That makes sense as we take, transcendence above what is happening in the physical world. Yes, that makes sense. And that's the adjacent possible. I am willing to move from an anthropomorphic God to a cosmic, universal God as law. That's possible. And for some other people, it's like, don't you take this, how could you say that? That's not what Jesus said. That's not what Fillmore said. That's not what so-and-so is said, so on and so on. And we go into the adjacent, not possible. And in that space, we know that we are there. Yes, there's chemicalization, but the chemicalization outpictures as fight, flight, freeze, and for some people, people please. And so I just invite you, as you're doing your own soul's journey, as we are in unprecedented times, to remember this as things come up. It doesn't mean you have to believe or profess everything, but sometimes we have to put something in the like, okay, this is uncomfortable. I'm realizing it. But I'm going to still be open to it and see what happens. So what are we to do? How do we awaken our souls to the next stage of evolution? Yes, we are to study the classics, all of the Unity spiritual classics, all of the other classics that you use on your spiritual journey. But my friends, there is also a call for us to take a new light on what is wanting to emerge. Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, stated, "I have the right to change my mind." And he talked about our evolutionary journey, and that the whole purpose of the allegories of the Bible were about the unfolding of the soul's journey. And if you think it stopped at the last chapter that we have in our hands, then you are kidding yourself. And so I invite us, this is just one thing that we can explore. There are many teachings out there now of visionaries, of mystics, futurists that are combining mystical teachings with what the science and what is wanting to evolve now to take a fresh look. And so one of these things that I am calling us all into together over the next few weeks is the work of James O.D. And we see that in the soul awakening practice is the call for us to, as a community, individually and as a community, to, on a regular basis, to affirm a prayer that James gives us. And it is simple in nature, it is universal in nature, and it also creates space for us to experience the subtle energy of our soul and of our spirit and of something greater, the universal presence of God, the breath of life. And it also takes every line of the prayer and delves into contemplative exercises and teachings that I will be exploring on each Sunday. And some of the contributors to this masterpiece of work is Michael Singer, Barbara Marks Hubbard, Anna Dea Judith, Mona Polaka, Kabri Helminski, and they are all teachers from different faith traditions, but also who are interested in helping to evolve and awaken us to a deeper understanding and wisdom of what it means to embody oneness. And so I share with you the Soul Awakening Prayer. And it is 6 lines: soul awakening, heart opening, light shining, love flowing, wounds dissolving, and peace radiating. And what the invitation is to first, like you do with any prayer or meditative time, is to do the relaxation exercises, relaxing your body, doing some heart breathing. And then you are to affirm the whole prayer together: soul awakening, heart opening, light shining, love flowing, wounds dissolving, peace radiating. And then you take it and you get a sense of that, each line of that prayer, in whatever way you sense, visualize, know it within your own being, that it's happening for you in the breath of your heart and your soul. And then you call one individual into your heart, someone who you would like to hold a special intention, a blessing, and then you recite and affirm that for you and this individual. And then you extend it out to your greater community, your family, your friends, this community, and other people within your intimate circle, and then out to the collective. And so I will be, like I said, exploring the teachings within this. And I invite you to, if you are so willing, to engage in this daily prayer. I can email you this. And after the Eastern Region Conference, I am also going to be having daily meditation time where we get to engage in the soul awakening prayer together. And I may also have something in the evening as well for those of you who cannot maybe make it in the morning. And so as I take a deep breath with you, I hope you are willing to join together, because even as we have been physically distanced for so long, and as we have invited a new way of being virtual and eventually being back in person, we're also having a call for us to explore, like, what is this community, Unity by the Shore, all about? Because we have been off doing our things, which is wonderful, exploring different options, which is wonderful. But what is the power of our community? And one of those ways to come together in power is to pray without ceasing together, and to embody this as one group, one community, knowing that there is power in numbers. And so, my friends, I invite us into a prayerful time of experiencing the soul awakening prayer.